The alien research ship drifted in silent orbit above the burned surface of Kepler 89c. Inside the main lab, cold blue lights glowed over rows of glass pods. Strange machines hummed softly, scanning, recording, whispering data into the air. And in the center of the room stood the thing the aliens had captured, a human. Or at least, what they believed was a human. Commander Vetch of the Thalron Empire circled the containment field, his four thin legs stepping lightly across the metal floor. His eyes glowed silver with irritation, and his long mandibles clicked every few seconds, a habit he had whenever he felt superior. And Vetch always felt superior around humans. "This is the creature?" he asked, glancing toward his science officer. "Yes, Commander," answered Rilu, tapping a console with her three-fingered hand. "Strong for its species. Aggressive, but primitive. Still only half evolved." Vetch laughed. It was a harsh, insect-like sound. Humans always pretend to be more than they are. They say they have spirit. They say they have will. But what is that compared to our evolution? Our perfection? Rilu nodded as she scanned the human again. Their bodies are weak. Their technology is messy. Their culture is chaotic. They have no idea how small they really are in the galaxy. Inside the transparent cell, the captured human stared at them. His name was Mason Ward, though they did not care to learn it. His face was bruised, his brown hair messy, and his breathing slow but steady. Even injured, his eyes remained alert. Focused. Watching everything. Rilu smirked. "Look how he studies us. Like he thinks he can escape." Vetch shook his head. "Escape? Impossible." But as he moved closer to the cell, Mason spoke. "You shouldn't have taken me." His voice was low and tired, but steady enough to make Rilu pause. Humans were supposed to be silent when trapped. Obedient. Broken, but this one talked like he knew something they did not. Vetch leaned closer. "And why is that, human?" Mason did not look away. "Because you don't understand what you brought on board." Rilu laughed. "A weak creature with soft bones?" Mason exhaled slowly. "A human." The room went quiet for a moment. Vetch shifted his posture, confused but amused. "Yes, a human. And? You think evolution is about perfect bodies," Mason said, voice tightening. "You think strength is about shape and size. Muscles. Bones. Claws. But you don't understand what evolution made us." Vetch rolled his eyes. "Please enlighten us." Mason leaned forward slightly. "It made us survivors." Rilu scoffed. "Every species survives." "Not like humans," Mason replied. "We break. We bleed. We collapse. But we stand back up. Again and again. No matter what you do. No matter how hard the universe hits us." Vetch flicked his mandibles impatiently. "Enough. Your kind is unpredictable, yes. Emotional, yes. But not powerful." Mason slowly smiled. "That's your mistake." Before either alien could respond, the lights above them flickered. A low alarm tone echoed through the ship, humming like a distant storm. Rilu frowned and checked her console. "Commander. Something is happening. The humans' bio levels are rising." Vetch stepped back. "Rising? From what?" Mason closed his eyes. His breathing grew deeper, faster, almost rhythmic. The scanner above his cell began to glitch, flashing numbers Rilu had never seen in a human before. "This is impossible," she whispered. "His muscles are enhancing. His neural activity is doubling. No, tripling." Vetch hissed. "He is mutating?" "No," Mason said quietly, eyes opening again. They were clearer. Sharper. Focused like a predator. "I'm remembering." Rilu froze. "Remembering what?" "What humans really are." The containment field buzzed as sparks jumped along its edges. The energy shield began to distort, bending inward as though something inside it was pushing outward with invisible force. Rilu shouted, "Commander. The field is destabilizing." "That is impossible," Vetch snapped. "No human has the power to." He never finished. The containment field exploded outward with a burst of white light. Vetch and Rilu were thrown to the ground as alarms screamed across the lab. When the smoke cleared, Mason Ward stood at the center of the destruction, breathing hard but standing tall. Vetch scrambled to his feet, shaking. What are you?" Mason stepped out of the cracked cell, his movements calm and steady. "Exactly what you mocked." Rilu crawled backward on the floor. "This is not natural. No human can do this." "You never understood evolution," Mason said, walking closer. "You thought it meant perfection. But for humans, evolution means we become whatever we need to survive. Every threat shapes us. Every enemy forges us. And you made yourselves a threat. Vetch tried to run. He didn't make it far. Mason was already beside him, faster than any human Relu had ever studied. We are weak only until we must be strong, Mason whispered. We are normal until we must be more. He looked around as the alarms continued to echo, as the ship shook from internal damage. And you mocked that. Relu could only watch in horror as Mason moved toward the exit, each step steady and controlled, every motion filled with a quiet power the aliens never expected. He paused at the doorway. You wanted to study humans, he said without turning around. Now you will learn what we are. Then he walked into the shadowed hallway as the ship trembled around him, leaving the aliens to face the mistake they would soon regret. Mason moved through the dim hallway, each step echoing across the metal floor. The lights flickered overhead, casting long shifting shadows. Behind him, the alarm still rang in loud pulses, but he did not look back. The Thalron ship was waking up, reacting to danger, trying to lock him down. It would not matter. He breathed slowly, letting the strange energy inside him settle. It felt like something old. Something buried deep inside humans for ages, waiting in silence until the right moment. The aliens had poked at it. Mocked it. And now it was awake. As Mason reached a junction, two Thalron soldiers turned the corner, armed with thin glowing rifles. Their insect-like bodies tensed when they saw him standing alone in the hallway. Halt, one shouted, raising his weapon. Human, stay where you are. The other soldier hissed nervously. He broke containment. How did he? Mason moved. The soldiers barely had time to fire. Their shots streaked across the hall, but Mason dodged with movements sharper than instinct. It was like his body knew the pattern of their attacks before they even pulled the trigger. He reached the first soldier and pushed him aside with a single strike. Not enough to kill, but enough to knock him into the wall with a painful crunch. The second soldier tried to run, but Mason closed the distance, grabbed his weapon, and snapped it in half like it was cheap plastic. The soldier froze, trembling. Mason didn't strike him. He simply pushed him back and continued down the hall. He had no interest in hurting more than he needed to. He was not here for revenge. He was here to survive. But the ship was not done with him. A metal door ahead slammed shut, blocking his path. A mechanical voice echoed from speakers above. Security lockdown. Subject contained. Security teams, converge on Sector 12. Mason stared at the sealed door. A few hours ago, he might have panicked. But now he felt a quiet certainty inside him. Humans did not freeze when cornered. They adapted. He placed his hands on the door. The metal vibrated under his fingers. He took a breath, pressed harder, and felt his muscles strain, but not painfully. More like he was tapping into something long forgotten. Something humans had always had but never used. The metal bent. Slowly. Loudly. But it bent. Mason forced the door open with a deep grunt, the steel screeching as he pulled it apart. On the other side, several scientists stared at him with wide, horrified eyes. One dropped her datapad. Another whispered, "This should not be possible." Mason stepped through the twisted doorway. "You should have left Earth alone." The scientists scattered. He didn't chase them. Instead, he moved toward a large platform in the center of the room that hummed with blue energy, some kind of teleport pad or internal transporter. If he could reach the bridge, he might have a chance to end this before the entire ship turned into chaos. But as he stepped onto the platform, a voice echoed through every speaker on the ship. "Human. Stop." Mason knew the voice. "Commander Vetch. You are making a mistake," Vetch continued. "Your species is weak. Unstable. You cannot win." Mason looked up at one of the ceiling cameras. "If you thought that," he said, "you wouldn't be talking to me. You'd be running." There was a long pause. Then Vetch spoke again, but this time his voice was colder, sharper. "I underestimated you. That will not happen again." A blast shield slammed down around the room, trapping Mason inside a circular chamber. The lights turned red. The floor panels shifted as huge machinery activated. Mason braced himself. Relu's panicked voice came over the comms. "Commander, no, the stabilization field has not been tested on live subjects." "It does not need testing," Vetch snapped. "It only needs to kill him." The room shook violently. A bright white energy field ignited above Mason, humming like a storm compressed into a single point. The heat pressed against his skin, heavy and growing stronger. Mason clenched his jaw. They were trying to burn him alive. The energy intensified, swirling around the chamber. The pressure was enough to push him to one knee. His body screamed at him to stop fighting, to lie down and let it end. But humans did not break that easily. Memories flashed in Mason's mind, his childhood, the people he cared about, the world he wanted to return to. Every moment, every struggle, every victory. They crashed through him like waves, pushing against the fear, pushing against the pain. Humans suffered. Humans endured. And humans evolved. Mason rose to his feet, fighting through the force that pinned him. His muscles burned, but he kept moving. The energy licked at his skin, but he pushed forward. He reached for the glowing generator at the center of the chamber. Rilu screamed through the speakers, "Commander! His energy readings are still rising." "That is impossible," Vetch shouted. "Increase power." "No," Mason growled, barely audible over the storm of light. "You don't get it." He grabbed the generator. The energy surged through him, so bright it blinded the cameras. The room exploded in a burst of white light. When the light faded, the blast shield was gone. The chamber walls were cracked. And Mason stood alone, smoke rising from the floor around him. He exhaled, steadying himself. "Humans don't stop," he whispered. He stepped forward, heading toward the bridge. "And you're about to learn why." Smoke drifted behind Mason as he walked through the broken doorway. The ship around him groaned, metal bending from the damage he had caused. Warning lights flashed a deep red, bathing every hallway in a pulsing glow. The Thalron voices echoed through the intercom, shouts, panic, orders. They were afraid now. Truly afraid. And Mason felt it. They should be. He kept moving down the main corridor. His muscles still felt warm, almost buzzing with leftover energy from the chamber. His heartbeat was steady, but something inside him had changed. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was something harder, quieter. A certainty he never had before. He would survive. No matter what they threw at him. As he turned another corner, heavy footsteps echoed ahead. A squad of Thalron soldiers came into view, wearing thick armored suits and carrying cannons the size of Mason's torso. They were not the simple guards from before. These soldiers were elite. Prepared for war. Their leader pointed his glowing weapon. "Human. Kneel. You will not get another warning." Mason could see the tension in their bodies. Even armed, even armored, they feared him. That fear made them dangerous. He lifted his hand slightly, not in surrender but preparation. The leader fired. A beam of bright green energy shot down the hallway. Mason dodged to the side, but the blast still grazed his shoulder and tore through the wall behind him. Pain rushed through him, sharp and hot. He staggered, exhaling sharply. The soldiers fired again. Mason rushed forward. His feet pounded the metal floor as he sprinted straight at them. Shots whipped past him, cutting lines of molten metal along the corridor. One beam would have vaporized any normal human. But Mason moved faster than their aim. The first soldier tried to block him, but Mason grabbed the cannon barrel and shoved it upward. The shot fired into the ceiling with a violent blast. Metal rained down. Mason twisted the weapon, yanked it free, and slammed the soldier backward. He spun with the captured cannon and smashed its heavy end into the second soldier's chestplate. The armor cracked, the soldier fell. 3 more aimed at him. Mason hurled the cannon like a spear. It hit one soldier hard enough to knock him off his feet. The other 2 opened fire, forcing Mason to duck behind a thick pillar. Green beams scorched the pillar's surface. The energy ate through the metal slowly, leaving glowing cracks. He couldn't wait. He pushed off, darting low and fast, closing the gap before they could correct their aim. He leapt forward, tackling one soldier to the ground. The weapon flew from the alien's grip. Mason grabbed it and slammed the butt of the cannon into the last soldier's helmet. Silence followed, broken only by the creaking of damaged metal. Mason breathed hard and looked at the fallen squad. He didn't feel joy. He didn't feel guilt. He only felt resolve. They were in his way. And he had somewhere he needed to be. The ship trembled beneath him. He glanced up as a booming voice echoed through every speaker. "This ends now, human." Vetch. Mason wiped the blood from his arm and continued walking. Panels flickered. Doors hissed open then shut, confused by the electrical damage. Sparks fell from the ceiling like tiny stars. He approached a large lift at the center of the next hallway. Above it, glowing letters read. "Bridge access, authorized personnel only." Mason stepped inside. The doors closed with a soft rumble. The lift began to rise, humming loudly as it carried him toward the brain of the ship. Vetch's voice appeared again, sharper, shaken but angry. "You cannot understand what you are doing. You cannot win. The Thalron Empire does not bow to lesser species." Mason stared at the lift doors. Then maybe your empire should learn. Arrogant creature, Vetch hissed. Your planet is young. Weak. You are not ready for the galaxy. Maybe not, Mason said quietly. But we learn fast. For a moment, there was only the hum of the lift, then Vetch spoke again, and this time his voice trembled with fear he could not hide. What are you, human? Mason whispered, alive. The lift stopped. The doors hissed open. The bridge was massive, with curved walls of shining black metal and a domed ceiling displaying the stars outside. Holographic screens hovered over control panels, showing warnings, energy levels, failing systems. The crew scattered around the room flinched when they saw Mason step inside. At the center of the bridge stood Commander Vetch. He looked smaller now. Not physically, his body was still tall and sharp and alien, but the confidence was gone. The glowing silver in his eyes flickered, like a dying flame. You, Vetch said softly. You should be dead. People like you have been saying that to humans for thousands of years, Mason answered. We're still here. Vetch raised a trembling arm. A weapon unfolded from his gauntlet, glowing with dark purple energy. This is your last warning. Leave my ship. Mason stepped closer. No. The weapon fired. But Mason was faster. He caught Vetch's arm, twisted it, and the shot blasted harmlessly into the ceiling. Sparks rained down as Vetch cried out in shock and rage. Mason pushed him back, sending the commander crashing into the main console. You mocked humans, Mason said, his voice steady, calm, unshaken. Now you're going to understand us. Vetch staggered to his feet, shaking with fear and fury. This is impossible. Humans cannot do this. Mason stood in front of him, the red lights reflecting in his eyes. Then you never should have called yourself the superior species. The bridge trembled. The stars outside flickered as the ship lost stability. The crew fled to emergency exits, leaving Vetch alone. Mason stepped forward. This ends now. The ship shuddered again as Mason stepped closer to Commander Vetch. Smoke drifted from broken screens, sparks flashed across the main console. The bridge lights flickered between red and white, confused by the damage spreading through the ship. Vetch backed away, his legs trembling, mandibles shaking with anger and fear mixed together. You do not understand what you have done, Vetch hissed. This ship is the pride of the Thalron Empire. You cannot take it. Mason's voice stayed calm. I'm not here to take it. I'm here to stop you from hurting anyone else. Vetch snarled. Your species is violent. Chaotic. You spread like infection. We were trying to protect the galaxy from you. Mason stared at him. By kidnapping people? By experimenting on them? Vetch hesitated, his eyes flickering. Human evolution is dangerous. Your kind adapts too quickly. Too unpredictably. You become stronger when challenged. Other species become weaker. You change. Mason stepped closer. You should have left us alone. Vetch reached behind him and slammed a clawed hand on a control panel. The floor beneath Mason vibrated. The stars outside the dome spun as the ship suddenly shifted course. Mason braced himself. What did you do? Vetch let out a shaking laugh. If I cannot contain you, human, then I will destroy you. I have set the ship on a collision path with the nearest star. Mason frowned. You're going to kill your own crew? The Empire will honor them, Vetch said coldly. And the galaxy will be safe. Mason felt heat rising from below. The ship's engines roared louder. They were accelerating, heading straight into the burning brightness of the star ahead. Stop it, Mason said. No, Vetch replied. You cannot save them. You cannot save yourself. This is the end. The commander tried to run, but Mason was faster. He reached out and grabbed Vetch's arm, pulling him back. The alien tried to strike with his mandibles, but Mason shoved him away and slammed him against a metal pillar. Turn the ship around, Mason said. Vetch hissed, refusing. I would rather burn than let your kind gain another victory. Mason tightened his grip. Then I'll do it myself. He threw Vetch aside and ran to the control panel. But when he reached it, he saw multiple systems flashing red. The engines were locked. The navigation was locked. The failsafe was locked. The ship was on a death path. And Vetch had made sure no one could cancel it. Vetch crawled to his feet, laughing weakly. This is your fate, human. You cannot evolve your way out of a star. Mason ignored him and focused on the controls. He studied the holographic screens quickly, scanning the icons and patterns. He didn't understand Thalron language, but he understood systems. Machines. He could trace energy flows with his eyes, follow power lines, picture how everything connected. Humans were good at pattern recognition. Too good, according to the aliens. Mason pressed several symbols in quick sequence. A panel unlocked. Another screen lit up. But the main lock remained red and solid. Vetch staggered forward, still laughing. You cannot stop a locked engine. The Empire built it so even we cannot override it. Only a direct shutdown could. He froze. Mason was no longer at the console. He was opening a side panel near the control hub. Vetch's eyes widened. No. No. You do not understand what you are doing. Mason pulled out a thick glowing power conduit, exposing the pulsing cables inside. Heat poured out of the opening. The ship trembled violently as the circuit began to overload. Mason looked at the sparking cables. He knew what would happen if he touched them. Every instinct inside him screamed not to. Human skin wasn't meant for this. Human nerves weren't meant for this. But he also knew something else. Humans did impossible things when they were desperate. He reached out. Vetch shouted, "Don't. You'll die." Mason grabbed the cables, a blast of energy tore through him. His muscles locked, his teeth clenched, and light filled his vision. The pain was blinding, endless, like fire crawling through every part of him. The power of an entire starship engine surged through his body. But he did not let go. He forced the cables together. The energy flow surged, then broke. The ship screamed as the engine cut out. The violent acceleration stopped. The bridge tilted as they drifted, no longer headed into the star. Mason collapsed to his knees, smoke rising from his arms. His skin burned, cracked, glowing faintly with leftover energy. His breathing was shallow, but steady. He had survived. Somehow. He always did. Vetch stared at him, shaking, unable to understand. This is not evolution. This is madness. Mason looked up at him, sweat and smoke mixing on his face. This is being human. The ship floated now, silent and powerless, no longer flying to its doom. Crew members peeked from hiding spots, stunned. Rilu stumbled onto the bridge, her eyes wide when she saw the smoking control hub and Mason on the floor. "Commander. What did you do?" she whispered. Vetch didn't answer. He couldn't. Mason stood slowly. Every muscle hurt, but he stayed on his feet. Humans always stood back up. He faced Vetch. "This ends with you answering for what you did to me. And to everyone else." Vetch backed away, terrified. Mason took another step forward, determination burning behind his exhausted eyes. "And I'm not done yet." Mason stood on shaking legs as smoke drifted from the burned cables behind him. His body ached deeply, and every breath felt like fire in his lungs. But he stayed upright. He had to. The ship was silent now, drifting in space with only emergency lights glowing dim red across the bridge. Commander Vetch stared at him from across the room. The alien's silver eyes shook with something Mason had never seen in him before, true fear. Rilu stepped slowly onto the bridge, her voice trembling. "Commander. The engines are offline. Life support is failing. If we do not stabilize the ship soon, we will lose oxygen." Vetch looked at her, then at the flickering screens, then back at Mason. His mandibles twitched as confusion and anger fought inside him. This human is a threat. He must be neutralized. Rilu shook her head. "He stopped us from crashing into the star. If he had not..." "Silence," Vetch snapped, stamping a leg into the floor. But the strike was weak, shaky. Nothing like before. Mason walked toward them slowly. "Your ship is dying. Your people need help. And I'm the only one here who can still move well enough to fix anything." Rilu looked at Mason with wide eyes. "Why would you help us?" "Because you're not the one who started this," Mason said quietly. "He did." Vetch's frightened stare hardened again. "You dare blame me?" Mason pointed at the damaged controls. "You kidnapped me. You locked me in a cage. You tried to kill me. And then you tried to crash your crew into a star just to destroy one person." Rilu turned toward her commander. "Is this true? Did you really set the ship to crash?" Vetch hesitated. His eyes shifted, searching for some answer that might save him. But the truth was already visible in the destroyed console. Rilu's voice shook. "Commander. You would have killed all of us?" "It was necessary," Vetch shouted. "A human who adapts like this is a danger to the entire galaxy." Mason answered calmly. "Or maybe you're just afraid your empire isn't as strong as you pretend." Vetch lunged at him, fury breaking through fear. But Mason stepped aside easily. Vetch stumbled past him, unsteady on his legs. Mason grabbed the back of the commander's armor and shoved him away. Vetch fell hard onto the metal floor. The sound echoed across the bridge. Rilu stared at Mason. Not with fear, with realization. You are not what we thought humans were. Your people only ever saw us as weak, Mason said. Soft. Emotional. Easy to break. But that's not who we are. Rilu swallowed. Then who are you? Mason looked around at the damaged bridge, at the aliens hiding behind consoles, scared and shaking. He thought about Earth, about the people who had survived storms, wars, disasters, everything the universe threw at them. We're the species that keeps going, he said slowly. Even when we shouldn't be able to. A deep tremor ran through the ship. A new alarm began to beep, softer but urgent. What now? Rilu ran to a panel and checked the screen. Her eyes widened. The ship is pulling toward the star again. Gravity is dragging us in. Without engines, we cannot escape. Mason stepped up beside her. What if we slow the ship down? We cannot, Rilu explained. The thrusters are too weak. They were never meant to fight a star's pull. Mason studied the diagram on the screen. He didn't know their language, but he understood the shapes and lines. There was one system still working, a series of massive stabilizer rings that controlled the ship's rotation. If we rotate the ship, Mason said, pointing at the rings, that might help us drift sideways out of the pull. Rilu blinked at him. That could work. But it is too dangerous. The rings are unstable. They can explode if pushed too fast. Then we don't push them fast, Mason said. We push them steady. Vetch climbed to his feet slowly, still trembling. You cannot operate Thalron systems. You are not trained. Mason glanced at him. I wasn't trained for anything you threw at me. But here I am. Rilu hesitated. Then she stepped aside, giving Mason room at the control station. Show me what you think. Together, they worked the controls. Rilu tapped coded commands while Mason guided the angle and speed. The faint hum of machinery echoed through the ship as the massive rings began to spin. One ring wobbled dangerously. The whole ship shook. Easy. Mason muttered. Not too fast. Rilu adjusted the power flow. The rings steadied. Another tremor hit as the star pulled harder. The ship drifted closer, its hull creaking under the growing heat. We need more rotation, Rilu said. But if we overclock the stabilizers, they blow up, Mason finished for her. Yeah, I figured. He gripped the console tightly. Sweat ran down his face. Do it, he said. Rilu stared at him. If the stabilizers explode, we will all die. Then let's hope they don't, Mason answered. We're out of choices. Rilu took a breath and increased the power. The ring spun faster, glowing brighter. The ship tilted, slowly drifting sideways, fighting the pull of the star. Metal groaned. Sparks flew. Vetch cowered behind a panel, watching with terrified eyes. A loud crack rang through the ship. One of the rings split down the middle. No, Rilu whispered. Mason braced himself. The broken ring spun, sparks flying, and then locked into place with a hard jolt. It didn't explode. It held. The ship drifted free of the star's gravity. The alarms faded. Silence filled the bridge. Rilu looked at Mason with astonishment. You did it. Mason shook his head. We did it. Behind them, Vetch collapsed against the wall, defeated. Mason turned toward him. We're not done, he said quietly. The bridge stayed quiet after the ship drifted free of the star's pull. The hum of the stabilizer rings faded to a low, uneven rumble. The lights flickered softly, no longer bright red but a tired orange. The crew began to breathe again. Some leaned against the walls. Others sat on the floor, exhausted. No one spoke. Mason stood in the center of the bridge, breathing hard, sweat and soot covering his skin. His arms still trembled from the energy overload earlier, but he stayed steady. He kept his eyes on Vetch, who sat collapsed near the main console, too shaken to rise. Rilu approached Vetch slowly. Commander. Your decisions almost killed all of us. Vetch didn't answer. His mandibles twitched. His silver eyes had lost all their shine. He looked smaller now, and far older. Mason stepped closer, but not threateningly. He wasn't angry, not anymore. He was tired. And he wanted answers. You said humans evolved too fast, Mason said. You said we're dangerous. Why? Vetch lifted his head weakly. His voice was thin. Because. Your kind changes in ways we do not understand. Explain, Mason said. Vetch hesitated, then finally spoke. Thousands of cycles ago, the Thalron Empire sent scouts to observe Earth. Humans were primitive then. Weak. But every time we returned, your progress was alarming. In one short age, your species changed more than others do in centuries. Mason frowned. That's just learning. No, Vetch whispered. It is adaptation. You make tools for every threat. Build new systems. Create new ideas. You do not limit yourselves. You take every challenge and grow stronger from it. And when something destroys you, the next generation rises smarter, faster, more resilient. Mason shook his head. That's not a weakness. That's survival. To us, Vetch said slowly, it is fear. Rilu looked between them. Is this why the Empire chose to capture humans? Yes, Vetch answered. To study them. To control them. To prevent human evolution from turning into human domination. Mason stared at him, disbelief rising. You think we want to conquer the galaxy? You will, Vetch said. One day. Mason stepped back. He felt no pride in the statement. Only frustration. Maybe we'll explore. Maybe we'll expand. But we don't want war, we don't want to rule. Not yet, Vetch said. Mason's jaw tightened. You created the threat you were trying to stop. You kidnapped me. You tortured me. You pushed me to the edge. You woke up whatever's happening to me. That's on you. Not on humanity. Vetch looked away. He had no answer. Rilu walked over to Mason. We are losing oxygen. The ship needs repairs. And many of our crew are injured. Mason nodded. Then we fix the ship. Rilu blinked. You want to help? Yes, Mason said simply. But we captured you, she said softly. We hurt you. And if I don't help, Mason replied, you'll all die. I don't want that. Rilu lowered her head. You are not at all what we were taught humans were. Good, Mason said. You should stop listening to people like him. Vetch glared at him weakly, but said nothing. Mason looked around the bridge. Tell me what systems are still working. Rilu moved to the console, checking the screens. Life support is at 40%. And dropping. Some of the power grid is burnt. Engines might restart if we repair the conduits. Communications are offline. What about escape pods? Mason asked. They were destroyed when the ship overheated near the star, Rilu answered. Mason ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. Okay. Then we fix what we can. Where do you need me? Rilu stared at him for a moment, then pointed to the broken conduits on the side wall. We need someone strong to lift the casing. It is fused to the floor. Mason nodded and walked over. The metal casing was heavy and melted into the platform beneath it. Rilu tried lifting it earlier but barely moved it. Mason crouched. His hands shook. He was far from full strength. But humans didn't wait for perfect conditions to start something important. He grabbed the casing and pulled. His muscles burned. His arms trembled. Pain shot through his shoulder from the earlier blast. He gritted his teeth and pulled harder. The metal groaned. Then cracked. Then lifted. Rilu's eyes widened. Incredible. Mason set the casing aside with a loud clang. What's next? 3 more crew members rushed in now, still shaken but ready to work. Rilu directed them to reconnect power lines and patch coolant tubes. Mason helped hold panels, pull cables, and carry equipment. No one spoke about the earlier fight. No one spoke about being afraid. The bridge became a place of quiet cooperation, alien and human working side by side. After nearly an hour, the lights flickered brighter. Fans hummed back to life. The screen stabilized. The low hiss of restored oxygen filled the air. Life support is rising, Rilu said with relief. 45%. 50. Good. We can breathe again. The crew sighed in relief, some dropping into chairs, exhausted. Mason leaned against a pillar, breathing slowly. His body still hurt everywhere, but he managed a small smile. Rilu approached him carefully. You saved us. Even after what we did. Saving people is what humans do, Mason said. She looked down. I am sorry, Mason warned. He nodded gently. Thank you. Behind them, Vetch weakly pushed himself to his feet. This changes nothing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Mason turned toward him. It changes everything. Vetch glared at him. The Empire will not allow your kind to roam free. Mason stepped closer, eyes steady. Then maybe it's time the Empire learned the truth about us. What truth? Vetch whispered. That we don't break, Mason said, and we don't stop. The ship suddenly shook. Rilu checked the console. Her eyes widened in horror. Mason. Commander. Something is approaching us. The screen showed a massive shadow emerging from the darkness of space, bigger than their entire ship. Rilu whispered, it's a Thalron war carrier. Mason stared at the massive ship drawing near. Vetch whispered, "They are here." For him. The shadow of the Thalron war carrier grew larger on the screen. Its dark metal body blocked the stars behind it, and its many glowing eyes focused directly on the damaged research ship. Even from this distance, the carrier looked powerful enough to crush them without slowing down. Mason stepped toward the screen, breathing slowly. "They're here for me?" Vetch swallowed hard. A human who shows this level of adaptation is a threat to the Empire. They will take you. Or destroy you. And they will destroy anyone who protects you. Rilu looked from Vetch to Mason, fear in her eyes. "We cannot fight a war carrier. Our weapons are offline, engines barely working, and shields are gone." The carrier sent out a boom that vibrated through the hull. A deep, low sound, like a warning. Or a promise. Mason turned to Rilu. "Can we run?" "No," she said. "If we try, they will fire. We would not survive even one hit." Mason looked at Vetch. "Can we talk to them?" Vetch shook his head. "They do not negotiate with subjects. They expect obedience." Mason breathed out slowly. "Then this ship is in danger because of me." Rilu stepped closer to him. "You saved us. Twice. We will not hand you over." Vetch hissed softly. "You would defy the Empire?" Rilu looked toward the wounded crew, then back at Mason. "We cannot treat him as an enemy after he saved our lives." Before anyone else could speak, the war carrier fired a small blast, not an attack, but a signal. A bright blue beam scanned across the research ship, lighting every wall with a cold glow. The air hummed. A voice came through the speakers, deep, rigid, emotionless. "Research Vessel Thalron 7. You are ordered to transfer the human specimen. Failure to comply will result in immediate destruction." The crew tensed. Some drew back. Some trembled. Vetch lowered his head. Rilu stared at the speaker, unsure. Mason stepped forward. "If you give me to them, they'll leave you alone, right?" Rilu grabbed his arm. "No. They will still punish us for losing control of you. And if they study you, they may create more weapons to use against humans." Mason nodded. "So giving me up isn't an option." Vetch suddenly stood straighter. "There is. One more choice." Everyone turned toward him. Vetch glanced at Mason, then at the massive carrier outside. His voice was quiet, but steady. "We broadcast what happened on this ship." Rilu frowned. "What?" "All Thalron ships listen to the fleet network," Vetch said, tapping a shaking finger on the console. "If we send the recordings, his escape, his strength, his willingness to help us, it will reach the carrier before they fire." Mason narrowed his eyes. "Would they even care?" "Maybe not," Vetch said. "But the Empire teaches that humans are unstable, violent, dangerous. If we show them proof that humans can be something else, it may make them hesitate. It may also make them destroy us faster," Rilu said softly. "Yes," Vetch admitted. "But it is a chance. And we have nothing else." Mason looked at him. This was the same alien who had called humans weak, had tried to kill him, had nearly burned his entire crew to stop him. But now he was offering a risky plan, one that could save them all. Mason nodded slowly. "Do it." Vetch's hands shook as he activated the broadcast. Rilu helped him, typing commands and unlocking systems. The ship's memory banks opened, and files flashed across the screen: the containment explosion, the engine shutdown, the stabilizer crisis, and Mason saving the ship again and again. Then Vetch added something unexpected: a live feed from the bridge. He faced the camera, breathing unsteadily. "This is Commander Vetch of Research Vessel 7. The human you seek is not what the Empire teaches. He saved the ship. He saved our crew. He saved me." Rilu stepped in beside him. "The Thalron Empire must stop fearing humans. They are not our enemies. Not unless we make them be." Mason stepped into the frame last. He didn't want to make a speech. He didn't know what to say, really. So he spoke simply. "I don't want a war with you," he said. "Humans don't want to destroy anyone. We just defend ourselves. That's who we are." The broadcast ended. Silence filled the bridge. The massive carrier floated outside, unmoving. Waiting. Seconds passed. Long seconds. Then the carrier's lights dimmed. The scanning beam shut off. The deep hum faded. Another message came through the speakers. "Research vessel acknowledged. Human specimen will not be collected. Maintain orbit. Await further review by the Empire Council." Then the carrier slowly turned away. It left without firing a single shot. The entire bridge released one long breath. Some of the crew even collapsed from the sudden relief. Rilu slumped against a chair, laughing shakily. I cannot believe it. They actually listened. Vetch stared at the screen, stunned. The Empire. Listen to me. Mason gave a tired smile. Guess today is full of surprises. Rilu turned to Mason. What will you do now? Mason looked out at the stars. I need to get back to Earth. And you all need to figure out what to tell your people about what happened here. Vetch stepped toward him, slower this time. You changed my view today, human. And perhaps you will change others. Mason nodded. That's how humans work. One person at a time. Rilu approached him with a small device. We will repair the engines. When we can, we will take you home. Mason smiled. Thank you. As the damaged ship drifted gently away from the star, now safe, Mason felt the quiet finally settle in. The fight was over. The danger had passed. For the moment, at least. He stood tall, bruised, exhausted, but alive. He had survived. Humans always did.